Hi, welcome. I'm here with Anna, and we've been having some amazing conversations, Anna, just about our journey at Honor the Maunga and everything we've learned. We started off as a tree protection organization, and we still are. And boy, the education and the process we've had has been profound. So you've written a media release today. What's it about?
Yeah, the media release is about some DOC correspondence, Department of Conservation correspondence that we obtained under the Official Information Act. And it shows that DOC officials are concerned about the ecological impacts, the negative ecological impacts of Te Puna Maunga Authority's plans to fell nearly half of the Maunga's tree cover. So DOC's saying that, mature trees have an important role to play, in fostering biodiversity, native biodiversity, and that, they're concerned that it'll be many years before the new plantings will come to maturity. Interesting reading.
I'm sure. And also, this is one of the other things we talked about is when you look at the plans, um, they're complex, but they're a little bit possibly misleading. So the conversation I'm hearing in terms of things that people are saying in public is that it's going to be eventually this cloaked emerald forest, but it doesn't seem to look that way in the plans, right?
Exactly. I mean, the artist's impressions show, fields of fluffy green, lush trees. What they don't show is the reality. Because, like, if you take Owaraka, for example, the new plantings, are only going to be on certain areas. So there'll be areas where there's significant fellings occurring and no new plantings. So what you're going to get is plantings restricted to quite a small area of the Maunga, and there'll be large unplanted areas. Also, what the authority doesn't tell you is that the vast majority of what they're planting are low growing species such as grasses, sedges and flaxes. And you can see this quite graphically at Pigeon Mountain, for example. Was looking at this awful photo today of these huge tree stumps and big logs from beautiful, mature, exotic trees just lying, like dead and rotting on the ground. And in the foreground is this big patch of weed sprayed ground and little flax plants. Well, they're never going to replace those huge mature trees.
No,
And
and
even in the few tree species that are planted, you're talking, native trees are slow growing. In many cases, you're talking 50 to 100 years or more before they reach maturity.
global warming, I mean, people can get mad and say it doesn't exist, but we had a 19-degree day the other day in July. It's scary. Like what's
Yeah,
happening is a rapidly shifting climate. So there's an ideal of a completely pure native landscape. A lot of those plants are meant to grow in dense undergrowth, which is there right now, in dense, damp,
absolutely.
soft conditions, and they're being planted alone, covered in chemicals as tokens. And, I think one of the other things we chatted about, which I'd love to hear from you on, is why. So,
Yes, well, that's the $64 million question that, I've been trying to find this out since October when I was one of the few people in Mount Albert that got the letter advising of the plans to remove all of the exotic trees off the Maunga and off Mount Albert. And that was my question, why? And this is what started me on the journey that has become Honour the Maunga, because I naively thought, well, this is ridiculous. It doesn't make sense to do this during bird nesting season. Why would you do something crazy like this anyway? You leave the mature exotic trees in place to provide shelter for the young native plantings as they grow to maturity. That's normally how this sort of thing's done. So I naively thought, oh, I'll just phone whoever the Te Puna Maunga Authority is, never heard of them before, and ask, and I'll have a conversation with somebody and find out what's going on. Well, of course, they wouldn't engage. And here we are. And, they've thrown a lot of pseudoscience at this over the months. But it's not fooling us. And what we're increasingly hearing from Te Puna Maunga Authority supporters themselves is that this is about decolonisation. we've had the head of the Friends of Owairaka support group say that at some length on social media. There's been Mel's Barton from the Tree Council, Te Puna Maunga Authority supporters, saying in a council meeting the other day that this is about decolonisation. And this raises a really, really interesting question, because what is decolonisation? Like, no one's actually defined what it is. And if it is about decolonisation, then why won't the authority be upfront with Aucklanders about that? Why is it chucking all this rubbishy pseudoscience? I mean, you know, you can drive a truck through the arguments. Like, if that's what the reason is, then why won't they own it?
And why is there an impression in the eyes of the public that this will be a thriving native habitat when the way in which the plans are being carried out make it almost impossible for that to happen?
Well, all the public should really do is go for a walk over at Maunga, Mount Wellington, Pigeon Mountain. I mean, not only is only a small proportion of what's being planted, you know, going to grow, mature into large trees. The authority has also counted on there being quite a high rate of attrition. You know, it's a really harsh environment up there. And this is what's happened at Maunga. You know, they've had a very poorly executed attempt at mound planting, which is not a suitable planting methodology for that kind of environment. It works better in sheltered, you know, more valley conditions, where they literally put these, oh, it's heartbreaking, these little fragile little plants in black plastic pots. They took the bottom out of the pot and staked the plants on top of the ground to supposedly avoid digging into the soil. And 5 months of drought later, no surprises as to what's happened. And, you know, they'll just keep doing this over and over and over again. And not only that, I mean, Mangere lost, I think it was from memory, 145, I think it was, mature trees were felled from Mangere last year. And I think something like, I don't know, you know, a few dozen small things have been planted. You know, nothing like the kind of replacement that would be required to meet the ecological or amenity value of those trees that have been taken out.
Oh, no way. And like we're
No.
living in a really interesting moment here where many people who will watch this have been aware of what's happened at Canal Road.
Yeah.
So zero opinions, just an observation.
Yeah.
Is here you have 4,600+ year old rare native species, so full of life, private property,
Absolutely. Yeah.
understandable, it's private property. 3 years of attempts to get the council to swap with the reserve that's like 200 meters down the road that doesn't have anything on it. They can't get themselves together to see the value in the native biodiversity that's mature, but are completely behind a project like this. So when I spoke to a representative of the TMA on Oairaka about this, and I really asked sincerely, I was asking, I'm like, I come from indigenous cultures too. Tell me, where are the birds going? Like, oh, the birds will always come back. Will they? The nest where? In what?
Yeah, and when? How many decades? Like, you know, the residents over at Mangere and Pigeon Mountain have told me directly that, you know, they don't hear moorporks there anymore. There's a lot of the native birds that used to be regularly there have gone. And I remember someone from Pigeon Mountain saying you see minor birds and things like that now. You don't see nearly so many native birds. And this is the thing, like, Honour the Maunga supports everyone I've spoken with, not just Honour the Maunga. I haven't spoken to a single person that doesn't like the idea of, over time, restoring the Maunga back to native vegetation, but it takes time. This is a project that should be done over many decades, not many weeks. That way, everybody wins. You know, you get the you get the cultural restoration, you get the ecological restoration, but in the meantime, you've still got a flourishing environment for all the life forms, the birds, the microbes, the insects, and for people to enjoy. Like, it's no, you know, mental health is a huge issue in our society, and you know, it's well known that having connection with nature is a really important balm for the soul and for our lungs, of course.
Absolutely. And just for the future, given
of
the
course.
extreme weather events that are happening. And I think there's two things. One is everybody you've spoken to is like, yes, absolutely, a thriving native habitat. I think in their minds, there's probably not this idea of a little bit of token landscaping of some plant that probably originated here. It's possibly thinking this is a forest. But
Yeah, there's
that's
never
not,
going to be a forest. There's never going to be a forest. And you know what makes me really sad in all of this is, you know, this has been, the authority has worked very hard to turn this into a race issue, and unfortunately the news media have been suckered into this, you know, hook, line and sinker, and that's so not what we're about. And what no one is asking the authority, and I wish some journalists would do this, is there's so many there's so many roads, you know, there's so many ways of achieving what they're trying to achieve. Why do it in such a destructive and divisive way, where the modus operandi seems to be, you know, lies, manipulation, and very opaque ways of dealing, you know, with communities. There's no integrity in the process. Yet it could have been so different, you know, like there could have been a genuine engagement of all communities within Auckland, and what, you know, what is an admirable vision, but to bring everyone on the journey in a way that of course redresses the wrongs and acknowledges mana whenua's place in all of this, but do it in a way that's respectful to all and that benefits to all. And actually in going on a constructive journey can be a really educational way and a gentle way of actually helping to correct some very deep and systemic misunderstandings. Whereas it seems to me now that you know, it's become very polarized and you're hearing very extreme views out there. I don't think anyone, on both sides of the fence, I might add,
it's
and
just,
I don't think anyone benefits from that.
this is
The environment
delaying,
certainly doesn't.
it definitely doesn't. It's delaying a maturation of society.
Yeah,
It's keeping our society, because we all belong here,
yeah,
in kind of an infantilized state
yeah.
where there isn't really an understanding that, hey, for this restoration, for this healing, these incredible living things that were also brought here against their will, they had no choice in it. They're not a relic, they're life,
Mm.
are actually going to help. And so, you know, it's been really tough for me as well. Like I hear so often, and I have so much empathy for people of European descent constantly being called racists. But it's also like anyone who's not white and not Maori, it's like don't speak. And it's like,
Exactly. It's so binary, and you know, where does it leave? I mean, you know, like New Zealand is full of people who are either recent immigrants or immigrants from a long time ago,
mhm,
but you know, have made it their home,
mhm.
and people who have lived here or who whakapapa back 800 years, you know, or more. Yeah, this is a home. We all need to, you know, of course, it's important to acknowledge what's happened in the past. There's many different histories out there, and it's important to acknowledge all of them, and to, you know, find a way of walking forward together, you know, where everyone is equal and treated well and respected. But we have to find a way to do that. It's crazy to be thinking that destroying 345 healthy mature trees on Oaraka Mount Albert in 2000 across Auckland's volcanic cones, that's not going to fix anything. It won't heal any hurt. All it does is it stuffs up the environment,
Mhm.
and creates a lot of division and dissension along the way, and costs many multiple millions of dollars that actually is benefiting a huge corporate tree felling company.
Mhm.
How the heck is that helping? How is that helping, you know,
Short-term
anybody?
thinking.
Yeah,
Is there a
yeah.
last thing you want to say on this subject, Anna? Because I want to thank you for your tireless work for like supporting all of us to ask important questions, for putting yourself in the line of fire repeatedly. And it's like in the face of data, it's very difficult to tell the same old stories again and again. So is there anything you want to leave people with as we close this chat today?
Yeah, and well, first of all, I'd like to acknowledge that I can't do this on my own. You know, there's many good people behind me, yourself included, Sama, and I, if it had just been me on my own, I would have, fallen at the first hurdle, I'm sure. But I think my message is, it's really one for Te Puna Maunga Authority. You're a co-governance organisation set up to represent, a treaty partnership, Ngā Mana Whenua and the other people of Auckland. And it doesn't have to be like this, like, I don't believe that the public face of Ngā Mana Whenua and the other people of Auckland should be belligerent, manipulative, lying, hostile, refusing to engage with communities with integrity. I don't believe that it needs to be that way. So, I guess what I would like to say is that why don't we, it would be great to see a positive and constructive path moving forward. Look, we all need to compromise, I get that. But, there's nothing to be gained from this destruction. Nothing.
Thank you, Anna.
Thank you, Sama.